cloud. Yes. Got it.
Let's do this.
Okay. We're live. Hopefully with a real recording platform.
Yeah.
Welcome everyone to Wholesaling the Cool Way. We our last 3 episodes that we felt really good about, that we had some great discussions on, did not get saved for whatever reason. We're using a different recording platform and had technical difficulties. So this should be the first one in a little while. I apologize if you have been following us, but hopefully we're back on track now and posting one every week.
Yeah.
So this is Wholesaling the Cool Way with me, Mark Cool, and my son Jasper Cool. We're both real estate investors. Jasper is based in Phoenix, Arizona, and I'm based here in North Carolina. We both work in the North Carolina market. We have separate businesses. We get together on Sundays and talk about what's working, what's not working, and share experiences and stories and tools and tips and tricks and stuff with each other. So anyway, you're invited into the conversation. So normally we start off with inspiration or education, things that you've stumbled on this week or inspired you. So are you you got stuff for that this week, Jasper?
Yeah. I've been reading the Rockefeller Letters book still. I've been enjoying that one. And I shared with that, I guess, when we were on our last episode, we were off the call. But what's inspired me is just learning more about his story, how he built his oil business, and just becoming, the biggest oil, I guess, conglomerate in the world at that point. And that's how they built their massive fortune. So really cool to hear some of his stories. And one of the recent chapters he shared that he was in school and the photographer came for picture day. And I think it was a very small class, like maybe 10, 15 kids. And he said the photographer literally like singled him out and he asked the teacher, like, could you please ask this kid to leave because his clothes weren't like he didn't have good clothes on. They were like raggedy.
Oh
And
wow!
I guess back in those days, like everyone wore like a nice school outfit or something. I don't know. Like I think this is back in the 1800s or early 1900s. And he shared that story and how it made him feel. And he was like, I wasn't angry at my parents for, they couldn't afford any better. And I wasn't angry at my classmates for being dressed better than me, but I told myself like I'm gonna be the richest man in the world, and he did it. And so I was like, that's so cool. Like that sparked that little thing sparked that for him. So that was a cool story, and just a bunch of other cool stories about how he's like working with different people or trying to force different people out. Like it's just very cool to kind of hear the backstory of his building his business. So I've been enjoying that book. That's the only thing I've been reading so far. And I think I had something else to share, but now I'm blanking on it. So I guess I can just stop at that and pass it over to you.
Yeah, that sounds like a good one. That's
Yeah.
really cool. So Standard Oil was his company, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So your grandfather's brother worked for Standard Oil. My great uncle, or your great grandfather's brother, Ray Cool's brother Harry, worked for
Hmm.
Standard Oil all his life. That was his job. He became
Yeah.
an executive in that company.
That's crazy.
So, yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, he was
And
just sharing. What's that?
no, go ahead.
Oh, I was saying he was just sharing about the recent chapter I was just reading this morning. He shared something about lima oil. And I don't know much about oil, but apparently back in the day there was a oil called lima oil or lima oil, whatever, and nobody wanted to use it because it smelled weird. Like it had a bad smell as opposed to regular oil, which doesn't smell great either. But nobody wanted to like buy these oil wells or drill these oil wells. And at this point, he was kind of a bigger company, and so he had to consult with his like shareholders, his board or whatever, before he like made a big decision like that. And so he was trying to convince them like this is going to be a good opportunity. Like let's try to buy into this Lima oil or Lima oil fields and stuff. And everyone was like, no, it's too risky. Like no one likes that oil. It smells bad, all this stuff. And he was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna expense my own money. And if it works, then I'll reimburse myself from the business. But if it doesn't, then I'll just take the loss myself. And he said when he told the board that he was going to do that, then everyone was like impressed by him and they actually were willing to fund it with him. So that was kind of cool. But
That's awesome.
But yeah, very cool. Very cool. And that's cool that our great grandfather worked for his company. It's very cool.
Yeah, Harry Cool.
Yeah.
And he worked there all his life, out of college. So he graduated college in probably like 1910 or 15. So it wasn't, the company was still a new company then,
Hmm.
so he worked his way all the way up. So he probably had contact with Rockefeller, I would guess. I never heard stories about that. We used to go and visit him down in Florida, but he didn't talk, or I was a kid. So I never really thought to ask him about how it was to work for Standard Oil.
Yeah.
But yeah, pretty
That's
cool.
cool.
The building is pretty impressive too in Chicago. When I was in Chicago this summer, there's this huge skyscraper in downtown, and it's really beautiful with marble and everything.
Hmm.
Um, really great entry and stuff. It's a Standard Oil building in Chicago.
That's cool.
Um, yeah, cool to see. Anne said she used to. Her dad got to go to some luncheons at the boardroom in the top floor when she was young. She got to go to one.
Hmm.
Um,
That's cool.
yeah, but so as far as me, I've got a couple books I've been reading. One is an audiobook that I mentioned last week, but the last week wasn't broadcast. So it's called uh, The Drunkard's Walk, which was referred to me by a mutual friend of ours, Adam Schneider, who's a real estate
Hmm.
investor. And it's a really good book. It just talks about how people don't account for randomness when they're thinking about business or other areas of life. And they just assume that things follow a set pattern or that everything's quantifiable or predictable, and it's not. Um, so that's cool to just hear the different. And he does really interesting chapters. Like he features different things that people can relate to. The one I drove a bunch yesterday. I can touch on that because I drove to see a seller yesterday. But I was listening to the chapter, and he talks about the race to break Babe Ruth's 60 home run record between Mickey Mantle and Roger Maris. It was in the
Hmm.
1960s in baseball, and he talks about how Maris broke the record, and everybody was mad because they wanted Mickey Mantle to break the record, but his body basically broke down, and everybody
Yeah.
said he didn't deserve to break the record or it was a fluke and all this stuff. But then he talks about the randomness piece of it and how like his biggest home run output was 39 home runs per year, but he was always in the 30s. He might have gone over 40 once, but there he was like if you just put it into a machine, like if you flipped a coin every time, what he said was that Maris hit a home run basically once every 14 at bats in his career. You know,
Hmm.
so you put that 1 out of 14 into like a predictable program on a computer, or if you had a coin that or a die that came up, 1 out of 14 sided die that came up the number one, that if you roll it, he would do that once every 30 years. He would break 60,
Yeah.
just based on his output, because sometimes the dice comes up more often based on your skill level, the pitchers you're seeing, all the different variables. And he talks about all the variables too. Like, did you go out last night and get drunk like Babe Ruth? Did you, whatever it is, did you eat a burrito that this didn't agree with your stomach? Did the pitcher have a hot day? Like whatever's going on, there's so many different factors that could be happening. But if you're dialed in, he had a 1 in 30 chance to break 60 homers, and he just happened to do it during his playing days. But it was the same thing. He talks about movie executives, and like some huge movie executive got fired after a down year, and it was like her market share for the movies that they were doing, I think it was Paramount, was like the numbers were like 11%, 10%, 9.8%, whatever. She was in this 10 to 12% range of market share. And then she went
Hmm.
down to like 7 and 7. But then they fired her. And then the next year, the movies that she had in the hopper, the next year, they went up to like 11 or 12. So it was just randomness. But then he
Yeah.
talks about this other executive that like his first 2 years, he was like at 6 or 7% market share and he got fired. And then the next year, his movies crushed it. Like all these movies he had in the hopper, and he names all these movies you would know, and he was like 11 or 12 and 11 or 12 the next 2 years. And it's like, but his randomness, like her randomness, she got celebrated as like this huge success in the movie industry, and she got paid a ton of money and all this stuff. Then she got canned. He never made it to that point, but then his
Yeah.
stuff came. But that's just randomness. It's like
Yeah.
his stuff could have hit the first year, and then one of the movie executives who had been doing it for like 30 years was like, "Yeah, if I had passed on everything I said yes to and said yes to everything I passed on, it would have ended up about the same." You
Yeah.
know, it's just it's so random how things work out with the movie industry or anything else. So it's
That's
really
funny.
cool
Yeah.
stuff. Just to understand, like things are not predictable, and there are hidden things that happen. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's I went on and on about that. So I won't do any. I'm reading this pickleball mindset book, which is really good, but I can check in about that another time. Uh, so let's do the business check-ins. So that's just like highs and lows or victories and challenges. Any KPIs you want to share or any stories about buyers or sellers or deals, and yeah, any tools or tips or tricks you have, anything around in the business world.
Yeah. So I'll do a quick rundown of the KPIs for this past week for us. So got 142 new leads this week, put out 119 offers, which is good.
Wow.
Um, we got 5 contracts this week, which is a great week for us.
Wow, that's huge.
And yeah, and
Yeah.
so 5 contracts. We closed 4 this week, and we sold just 1 this week. So all in all, good week for us. And that's
Yeah, that's
actually
great.
yeah, that's actually 2 weeks in a row. So last week we had yeah, last week we had 4 contracts. This week we had 5 contracts. So I'm very happy with those numbers. You know, if I can average 4 or 5 a week, that'd be amazing. You know, earlier this year had some struggles, had a couple of weeks with literally 0 contracts. So it's really nice to get 4 and 5 back to back. That's awesome.
Yeah,
And
that's great.
yeah,
And you
hopefully
closed
we
four, did you say? You closed, what did you close?
yeah, we closed 4 this week, which is awesome.
Wow, that's
Yeah, I
huge.
mean, I guess one of those is technically not like a closing because that was just from a memorandum that I got paid out on. So that's like 3.5, I guess.
It's still
Um,
money. Yeah.
yeah, it's still revenue. So yeah, we closed 3 deals, on our own, and then I got paid out from a memorandum for a fourth. So I guess 3.5 is more accurate, or 3, but still a good week. So yeah, there's that, and then I guess I could do uh a quick breakdown on the. I'll just do it on the 3 that we closed quickly if anyone's interested in that. So first one was a land deal, which I mentioned on one of our shows that didn't end up recording. So I'll do a brief recap of that one. But if you guys have listened to this before, you know that primarily I don't do land anymore. I primarily just send all our land leads to to my dad, which is nice for me because it just saves us a bunch of time. But I still I'll do a quick analysis before I throw it in the land bucket on most of these land deals. And this one was a really cut and paste type land deal where there's already a driveway, the house burned down, super flat lot, cleared out, just super
Those are
easy
the
deal.
best ones,
So
man. Those are the best
yeah,
ones. Yeah.
yeah. So those really don't come around often. If they do, definitely want to take them because they're much easier to sell and already have connections to city utilities and all that stuff. So this one was
I
pretty
wonder if
pretty
there's a way
easy.
we can search burn down houses. Like
I
could we
know,
just
right?
search, go to the fire department records or something and like just reach out to those people?
Yeah. I think there was a dude, like this was a while back, but I think there was a dude who sold that list. It was like a fire damaged house list, which, sometimes those houses are just really crappy and they haven't been torn down yet, but other times they have been torn down. So yeah, I don't know. But that's a good point. But yeah, so this one was pretty smooth overall. I'll do a quick breakdown on the campaign and everything. So we launched this campaign. It wasn't like a land specific campaign. It was just all encompassing. And we launched in August of last year. And we got this guy who came in, let's see, he came in April of this year. So that's quite a long time from when we originally launched the campaign. So we got his lead on April 4th, and then we contracted pretty quickly after that. We contracted him. Actually, I'm sorry, we contracted him the same day he came in. So that was a good, it was a win for us.
Yeah.
Just because I think the funny thing was though, he came in, I'll try to keep all this brief, but he came in and he was asking 40,000 for this lot. And I was like, no chance. And so like I did my quick analysis and I was like, I'm really interested in this lot because of, what I just mentioned, but 40,000 is insane. And so I was just like told my team, I was like, maximum we could offer for this is 10,000. And I didn't think anything of it. I just like told them that and I just moved on to the next deal because like such a discrepancy there. And then like an hour later, they're like, he accepted, like, let's send the contract. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. Like no negotiation, didn't counter offer us or anything. So realistically, as a wholesaler, sometimes you hate when that happens because you're like, oh man, I probably could offer even less. Like if they just immediately accept your offer, you probably could even offer less. But that was kind of a shocker to me. So we got him for 10,000. He was asking 40. And like I said, there was really no like negotiation there. He was just like, okay, like I'll do it. And so that was cool. And
He
then
probably
come
had
to find
insurance
out,
money.
what's that?
He probably had insurance money from the house burning down, so he
Yeah.
didn't. Whatever he got was gravy, probably.
Yeah, definitely. And I did a fire damage house earlier this year, but it wasn't torn down. It was like a fire damage house. And same thing. Like the insurance pays off your mortgage, and I think they give you money on top of that. And so then if you do that and you sell it, you're making like double on your money. So it's like, yeah, it's all gravy for these guys. But yeah, come to find out, he had I think like 5 or 6 thousand in basically like city liens because he hadn't been paying taxes and it had just been sitting like that for a while. And so the city was like mowing the lawn over and over and they were dinging him every time they did that. And so luckily, he still walked away with a few thousand, but I think that's kind of the motivation behind him wanting to sell because he wasn't paying any sort of the fines or the taxes or anything on it. So but anyways, we locked it up for 10 and then we sent it out for 22. We set it off for slightly under, but it was really pretty a quick sale on the dispo side. And then we closed in about what's that, about 3 weeks from the fourth to this week. Yeah, so about 3 weeks. So
That's
yeah,
awesome.
those are just really nice deals when easy land deals, no tenants, there's nothing to deal with, and you get it sold. And title was clear besides the liens and stuff. So it was just an easy one. That was nice when you get those.
Yeah, we had one of those last year with the burned down house, and it's just like there's a space for it. It's flat. There's water tap, sewer tap.
Yeah,
It's very easy if you can
yeah.
get it for the right price.
Yeah, those are the best ones. So yeah, I'll do a quick breakdown of the other two. So one of these I touched on a couple times on our other shows. So this one was a PPC lead, which is exciting for me to close on another PPC deal. And this lead came in, let's see the exact date, came in on March 14th, and we contracted her on March 18th. So pretty quickly after it came in, which is awesome, and then sold it pretty quickly. And we did run into some title issues on this one, which is why it took a bit longer to close. But the attorney that we were working with, I mentioned this on our last show, but basically there was like an old deed of trust. We've touched on that before on our show. Usually that means that there's a lien that was paid off, but the bank either went out of business or just forgot to file the lien or whatever, or the lien release or something like that. And so on this one, I didn't have any luck tracking down the bank, and the trustee wouldn't help us. And so the attorney had some connection with a cancellation company, and he was able to help us out there. And basically, he just charged $2,500 to the seller, and she was okay with that, and we were able to get it closed. So on another deal that I'm working on right now, neither one of those things could happen. It's with a different attorney, so he didn't have that same like cancellation route or whatever. And so we're going the route where he's just gonna send them a letter, and then we have to wait 30 days for their response, and then he can file an attorney satisfaction himself. So that's kind of another route you can go, but obviously then you have to wait a full month, which is kind of a bummer. This one was nice because she was willing to pay that 2,500, and he was willing to help us out, and so we got it closed a bit earlier than we otherwise would have. So that was nice. So again, the lead came in on the 14th, contract on the 18th, and then we closed it this week on Monday. So what was that, 24th, I think, 23rd, something like that. So about a month.
Mhm.
So that's the good thing about PPC. Like she came in, we contracted within a few days, and then we closed it. So all within like roughly 30 days. So that's really nice. That's like the
Yeah, it's nice.
the pros of PPC. The cons are that the leads are very expensive and they're infrequent. They're not, consistent leads that you're getting. And you don't really have control over where you're getting them. So we got a lead this week in West Virginia, and I'm just like, dude, what am I doing in West Virginia? So
Didn't you
but
tell him you only wanted North Carolina?
yeah, but we got a lead in West Virginia, we got a lead in California, we got a lead in Virginia. So they just come in from all of but yeah, but overall it's working a bit better now. So I'm excited about that. We're finally in the green on PPC, which is nice. Um, so yeah, and then our last deal, well, it's quite a different story from the first two. This one we contracted in October of last year, and quite the long runway. So the lead came in the beginning of October. We contracted her a couple weeks later, and then there was a huge estate issue. We had to go through this whole estate process. So basically, I was working with the seller for like 2 months on my own, trying to like walk her through the process and get her to help me with these documents. And she's, an older lady. She doesn't understand how it works. And I don't totally understand how the estate process works either. So I wasn't being the most helpful, but I was just trying to like coach her through it from what I was hearing from my closing attorney. And that wasn't really getting us anywhere. So then January this year, I reached out to an estate attorney and paid them their retainer. And he got to work basically doing what I was doing, but much better with the seller. And finally gave us the green light about 2 weeks ago, and then sent everything to the closing attorney, and then we got it closed. So from October till now, that's like 6 or 7 months on this one. But we finally got it closed, so that was awesome. And the seller reimbursed me for my fees that I paid the estate attorney, and made a decent profit on that one. So that was good.
Nice.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a breakdown for the closings this week. Uh, and I guess I mean I kind of went in depth on those, so I don't need to go much longer if you want to just switch it over.
Yeah. I mean, we got other stuff. It's fine.
Yeah, if you want me to share more stuff, I guess I could, but yeah, I don't know.
Well, I mean, if you've got something that you want to share, jump in. And if not, I can switch over, and you can always jump back in if you think of something.
Yeah, I'll share briefly just because this was helpful reminder for me. But on our call this week with Matt Larson, my dad and I are both in this group with Matt Larson called the Deal Lab. If anyone wants to join, it's $47 a month, and it's just a weekly Zoom call. And you also get like a back office type thing where you have access to some contracts and past recordings and stuff like that. So it's a pretty good group. But this week he talked about how to scale a team, and the main takeaway that I got from it is just building SOPs. And that's something that I need to work on because I definitely have them, but I don't have them for every department and every action within every department, stuff like that. And
Yeah.
he also shared a website called Sweet Process, which I looked into. I haven't signed up for it yet, but I looked into that one. And basically, what he shared for anyone listening, if this might be valuable, I would recommend it to anyone who's newer, especially because if I would have done this when I was newer, it would be much easier to scale. Because it's much harder when you have team members in place to kind of go back and like, oh, by the way, now this is the process, even though you've already been doing this for months, like without a
Yeah.
process. So it's kind of it feels kind of weird to me. But if you're newer, like just every task that you're doing on a daily basis, then you could just write yourself a process for it and kind of edit it as you grow. I think that would be a great way to do it. But what Matt recommended is that if you just spend time, maybe 30 minutes to an hour a day, and you build one process a day, then in like 3 months, you can have a process for everything within your business, and then you can hand everything off within your business. So that's exciting for me, and that's a challenge that I need to take on, so that I can ultimately step away from more things. But that was a good reminder for me. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, I guess that's it. I mean, for victories, the closings were a victory this week. Contracts were a huge
Yeah. That's
victory this
huge.
week. And hopefully we can keep the momentum rolling. It seems that we're getting a lot of more interested sellers right now. I don't know if it's because of the spring market or if we're just getting more better leads or what, but that's been really good for us. And it just seems like the lead quality has been improving lately. And the challenge that I've had lately is just kind of waiting in various stages, and dispo has been kind of, I mean, it's not like a challenge. I'm wondering if there's something I could do to kind of speed that up, but sometimes you just kind of have to work at the seller's pace. And what I mean by that is like we'll get a contract and I'm super excited, like we got a contract, like I want to work on selling it, getting it closed. But I've been running into more and more owner occupied deals, which I don't mind, but a lot of these sellers are like, well, I'm still waiting to close on my other house, so I can't even close for 2 to 3 months. I'm like, oh, okay. So like we're still taking the deal because it's a good deal, but I'm not going to try to
Yeah.
rush close in a month if they don't even have their other place yet. So that's kind of a bummer. And then
Yeah.
also, on the other side of things with tenants, you can never control the timeline with those. So it's like some of these properties we've had for a couple of weeks and still don't have photos, and so that's kind of a bummer. But I guess it's sometimes it's nothing you can do with those, but. The good news is we are getting more and more contracts, so it gives us more opportunities. So it's awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's it for me. We can switch over.
All right. Yeah, I feel you on the stuff with the slow moving sellers. We've had some of that too. I can check in about that a little bit. Um, yeah, this for some reason Zoom is being a little bit skippy on the audio, so I'm gonna use my notes on my phone instead of having this tab open on the computer because it seems
Okay.
I don't know what's going on. But This week we sold 2 properties, which was huge for us because we've been in a slump in dispo. We just haven't sold anything in weeks. And normally our average last year was we'd sell like, I think our average was 8 per month sold or something like that.
Hmm.
We closed 46 deals last year. So yeah, I think we were averaging somewhere around 7 or 8 solds, and we had none sold in April, and we had a slow second half of March also. So that was a huge victory to sell 2 properties this week. One of them is a really house in horrible shape that's, basically a tear down, but it sold. And then another one's a piece of land, vacant land that we're doing as an owner finance deal. So that's good. We'll get, a down payment on that, and then we'll get some monthly revenue coming in on
Yeah.
the land owner finance land deal. And uh, we got 2 contracts, so that was good. We're keeping the contract momentum going. It's a little bit light for us on the contracts, but we had 4 last week, so 6 in 2 weeks, not bad.
Nice.
Um, those are both land contracts. Last week, I think we had 2 house and 2 land, maybe, if I'm remembering correctly. As far as leads go, we had 38 leads from no 42 leads from SMS, and 15 from cold caller. So 42, that's 57 leads. We sent out 28 offers, which is pretty good. Um, and then we didn't close any this week. We just sold those 2. So now we have 2 in escrow, and we have 3 or 4 that are in various states of dealing with title issues or error issues or things like that may never close. So I can't really count those as anything. We'll see.
Yeah.
One of them, you talked about the error, the attorney for the estate. Like, we do have one of those guys who's like really wants to sell his property. He's really great to work with, but there's all these contingencies about who could possibly have a claim. And we have to
Hmm.
like find all these people, and he doesn't know where to find half the people and or know their contacts. So it's one of those. It's just like, wow.
Yeah.
So yeah. So anyway, I was on KPIs. So that's my KPIs as far as victories. I did close this deal that I did by myself before I added team members. So I started doing real estate investing in the middle of 2020, and I think I closed 1 deal in 2020, and this was it. I closed another one at the end of the year, but I can't remember. It was like the last week of December, the first week of January. I'd have to look it up. But anyway, this was the first deal that I got under contract and closed when I started doing this investing. As really started doing it again. So it's
Hmm.
a subject to deal, and so I'll get a check next week for 10K on this, and I was going to do a little bit of breakdown on this, uh, just because it might be interesting for some people. Let me see if I can pull up this sheet I wrote on it. I know this is, podcast is called Wholesaling the Cool Way, but we do some owner financing deals and um, some other stuff. And this strategy, subject to, can be good for wholesalers if you get people with too much equity but a lot of motivation, and they have a loan on their property. You might be able to take over the property for not much money and do something with it.
Yeah.
Huh. I'm just trying to pull up a document because I was going to do like a whiteboard thing, but I don't know if it's going to come up. Okay, well, I'll just run through the numbers verbally, and um, we can do it that way. Let's see. Here, I'm pull it up on my phone here. For some reason, my computer is being slow. So this is a subject to deal in Durham, North Carolina. I got the lead from Craigslist. So when I first started, I would go on Craigslist and look for sellers that were selling for sale by owner. So I called the seller and talked to him. I went over to look at the house. I met with him in his kitchen, and we did the contract. His motivation was that his ex-wife, had been living in the house and not making payments, so it was really far in arrears. It had over $20,000 of arrears, and he was in pre-foreclosure. The house was going to be foreclosed on. So his primary motivation was, as many frustrated sellers say, to just get rid of it, to be done with it, and second, to protect his credit and not have a foreclosure on his record.
Yeah.
So I ended up contracting this with him for $0 net to seller. Our only agreement was I was going to bring the loan current and protect his credit, and that was the main thing for him. And I was going to take this thing
Hmm.
off his hands. So the house was in pretty good shape. It was definitely livable. It had some, a lot, mostly cosmetic repairs. So probably I would say like 20K in repairs. Retail on that thing at the time, I think, was 200 to 210. So, and then when you're looking at sub two, you look at the underlying loan and the mortgage payment. So he had a VA loan on this thing for, I think it was 4%, and his monthly payment was around 1,040, and he had a mortgage balance of around 135. So my exit strategy on this was that I sold it. I was trying to sell it on owner financing and get a down payment to pay off the arrears, and then make money on the cash flow and make money on the back end of this, the difference in the purchase price and the difference in the interest rate.
Mm-hmm.
So how I marketed for that was I put a sign in the yard first and foremost. I put it on Craigslist, and then I ran an open house that I think I advertised on Craigslist. Ended up with like a dozen people at the open house, a lot of calls on the sign, and I found a buyer who put down 40K. So I needed to get, like 23,000 to pay off the arrears and everything. So the
Yeah.
buyer put down 40K to close this. I sold it for 187, with the underlying loan at like 135. So there's my built-in 40K in profit.
Mm-hmm.
And then I get, on the back end. And then I got 17 cash out at closing because the arrears were around 23 and the buyer paid the closing costs. So I made 17, and then his monthly payment, because I sold it to him at 7% and the underlying interest rate was 4%, and the payment was 10,080. He was paying, I made about 200, a little over 200 per month in monthly cash flow.
Yeah.
So this guy just closed this week. He wanted to pay it off, and he cashed it out after 3.5 years. So what I ended up making on this in profit was 17K at closing, 10K on this cash out, which was part of the difference between the purchase price. The 17K and the 10K were both part of the difference in the purchase price between, what we got into it for. And then I made around, 8 or 9K on the monthly cash flow spread over the last few years. So ended up making, 38,000 on this deal. And
Nice.
I put $0 of my own money into this. This is when I was just starting real estate investing. I didn't really have any cash to start buying properties or doing anything. So I got this for, I paid the seller zero out of pocket. I got the buyer to pay the down payment. And yeah, and then I just started collecting monthly cash flow, and I had 17K in my pocket up front. So that gave me
That's
a little bit
awesome.
more breathing room to deals. Yeah.
That's
so
awesome.
so anyway, subject to is pretty cool. We have another one now that we just bought subject to, and we're going to either sell it owner financing or sell it cash. I'm talking to some more sellers about this. If you want to do subject to, you are marketing for highly motivated, low equity sellers. So most wholesaling lists are high equity. You're looking for low equity, highly motivated. So that's divorce, pre-foreclosure, bankruptcy, probate, whatever, those kinds of
Mm-hmm.
situations. And then you can do these deals, and you can take over the loan. It's pretty easy to do. You just take over the loan, keep making the payments for them on their behalf, and I can go into the nitty gritty of it, or I can point you to other people who teach about it. But that was that deal. So that was a big win for me this week, just to see that one come full circle. Now, if they had kept paying off the loan for 30 years, I would have made more money because I'm making $200 every month, and I have the spread between the purchase prices. But so in a way, you want them to keep paying off the loan, but it was still nice to make that money and to have the thing come full circle and see, oh wow, I made like 38K on this thing, and I put
Yeah.
nothing into it, and I had no idea what I was doing when I first, you know, I had studied it, I learned about it, but I was like, I'm just jumping in, and I got this deal done.
Yeah.
So anybody can do it. Um, so yeah, that's that, and see if I had anything else on my notes here for the business this week. Oh, you mentioned a memorandum, Jasper, so maybe we should touch on this briefly. Both of us got paid on memorandums this week, so I didn't get paid much money, but it was just kind of a funny story where this guy's crazy, the seller is kind of crazy, and he contracted with us, and then his ex-wife wouldn't sign off on the sale, and then I said, "Oh, I'll call her up and get it worked out." And he's like, "Oh my God, you can't call my ex-wife!" And he freaked out on me. I was like, because I guess he's scared of her, the tension or whatever. He didn't want
Yeah.
anything to do with her, and I was like, I've ironed these situations out lots of times. I don't mind calling her. And he's like, you can't call her, you can't go, and you get freaked out. So
Yeah.
then he basically just ghosted us for a long time. And we had a memorandum on the property. So then recently he called me again, freaking out. And I think this guy is just a little bit crazy, but
Yeah.
calls me again, freaking out, like, "Oh my God, I'm trying to sell this property, and you have a memorandum on it." And I was like, "Yeah, well, we had a deal to buy this from you." And he's like, "Well, you got to take that thing off of there." And I was like, "Well, I mean, we have first right to buy it. We have this deal with you." And anyway, the long and the short of it is, we reviewed the property, and it's got like a ditch in it, and it's got like, and it's probably not going to sell anyway. And so I was like, well, you got to pay us our admin fees, and then we'll release it, you know. so so he's like, well, how much is that? And I was like, I gave him a quote. It's like a few $100s, and he's like, okay, I'll pay it. I'll pay it. So he paid us admin fees for it. He thinks he can get 30,000 out of it. I think our offer we were under contract on was like 8. So that's kind
Yeah.
of just where he's at in his head. And I was like, okay, no, you're not going to get more than 8 for this. And I didn't say this to him, but he'll try and sell it for 30 for a while. Then he'll try and sell it for 20, and then he'll try and sell it for 10, and then maybe he'll come back to us and take the 8. But
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. It was just kind of funny that a memorandum worked. So
Yeah.
so I had that on there. So we talked about memorandums on this before, but it's good to file a memorandum payday. Like, he got a payday in the thousands on the one that he did because his memorandum came up, and the attorney would not close with that in place, and Jasper was able to negotiate some money. So
Yeah.
awesome. And then I did go and visit a seller this week, and I've done this twice in the last couple of months, and it's kind of crazy. Like, I drove 90 minutes down to Fremont, North Carolina, to meet with a seller. It's like a property that her dad gave to her, and it's the neighborhood she grew up in. And she's a teacher, and she's getting married and moving in with her, her fiance when they get married. And so it meant a lot to her, and she really wanted me to meet her face to face. So I could have sent somebody down there, and I, for whatever reason, chose to go down there and meet with her. And it's been really good for me to do these the last couple times. The other one that I did a month or so ago, the guy ended up wanting to sell us 3 other properties that he has because I built a relationship with him and met him in person. And it,
Hmm.
it is good for me to not be doing everything virtually, and to actually meet people and see the property. And like, it was kind of cool because I met with this woman, and then we sat in her living room, and she had like a little chihuahua that was basically on my lap, and she had another dog that's like on the couch next to me, like staring at me and wanting me to pet it. And she had like 3 cats, and we just had a nice talk and a nice connection. But,
Yeah.
so that cemented that deal, and it'll be a good profit deal. But the other cool thing about going down there was, like, when you're looking at comps and stuff, and you're looking at, like, we're getting this place for 60K, right? And then the comps, we're not sure. Like, well, there's one that sold for 100, but the one a block away sold for 200. What the heck is going on over here? So
Yeah.
I actually drove the neighborhood, and I was like, oh my God, people are fixing up the houses on one block over, and they're like totally buffing them out and flipping them, and they're selling them for 220. So I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, now I know that this is an actual comp for this, and I know we can actually ask for this. And then she tells me, when we're sitting there talking, she's like, yeah, and this open field across the street from me, there's a development going in there. And then there's an Amazon plant going in, like, in Johnston County, just next door. So, like, people are trying to buy houses over here to commute to the new Amazon plant. So, like, I just learned a ton that you can get that stuff on the phone with the seller sometimes, but just taking the time to, like, give the relationship breathing room and connecting with somebody, um, just, I think, has a lot of value. So I'm not saying I'm
Yeah.
going to do it all the time, but I'm glad I did that. So,
Yeah.
and
That's
it helped
great.
me and it probably will help us make more money on this deal,
Yeah.
and you do get referrals. Like, this family has other properties, right? And they might have friends, and so building that relationship, I think, is worth it sometimes.
Hmm.
So anyway, wanted to share that story. It was a good experience.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And sometimes it's fun to drive through the backwoods of North Carolina and see what's going on in all these small towns.
Yeah.
Listen to some. That's when I was just listening to a book on tape and, like, driving. It was cool.
Hmm.
Uh, so that's what I got. That's all for me for now.
Nice. That's
Don't
awesome.
have any other challenges except for the normal ones: sellers ghosting and title issues, and et
Yeah.
cetera, et cetera. Nothing new.
Yeah. That sounds like a good deal. That's exciting.
Yeah. I mean, it's I think it will be. Well, fingers crossed. And it's when you mentioned earlier, like she's moving in with her fiance, so like they are 30 to 60 days out before we're really going to be able to get in there and do inspections and put a
Yeah,
lockbox on and all that stuff and get photos. But but that's okay. It is what it is.
yeah,
And now, like, she feels good about our company, and she already felt good about our acquisitions person, but now she think knows who we are, and so if we have to wait 30 to 60 days for them to find their place, then we will.
yeah. That's great.
Yeah. So I think we're coming down to the end here. We got anything else before we wrap it?
Uh, no, I don't think so. All good.
Yeah. Well, hopefully this one records and we can post it. We've
Yeah.
recorded some really good episodes lately that no one will ever see or hear, but we
Yeah.
enjoyed them. So, but hopefully we can get on a track here where we're bringing some value to people and yeah, getting some episodes posted.
Yeah.
So yeah, if there's stuff you like in here, let us know because we want to bring more of what people like. If there's stuff that is a waste of your time or don't want to hear, let us know that too. Um, and if there's things that you'd like us to talk about or touch on, please let us know that. We always like to have suggestions. And then you can reach out to us probably on Facebook, Jasper Cool, my company page too, business page and the website. Um, but yeah, hope everybody has a great week and does deals. And yeah, got anything else, Jasper, before we sign off?
No, it sounds like you covered it all. But thank you, anyone who's listening this far, and appreciate you guys. We'll see you on the next one.
All right. Bye.